Good morning, everyone. Welcome to BTC Prague. It's officially underway. My name is Gigi. I'm the founder of Become Unruggable, a Bitcoin self-custody mentoring service, and I'm a host of my Bitcoin podcast called Your Bitcoin Story. And today I have the pleasure of moderating this fantastic panel. Before we go into the weeds of multi-sig setups, regulatory headaches, and seed phrases on steel plates, can we do a quick question with the audience? Can you guys raise your hand? Who here holds their own keys? Okay, not bad. And keep your hands up if you're 100% confident that you can pass on your backup and recovery of your Bitcoin to your spouse, business partner, or lawyer. Okay, not bad. But I see a lot of hands are still down, so that's why we're here today. Just to give a quick introduction to our fantastic panel today, we have Raimund from, one second. The plan changed to what we had, so bear with me. Who brings experience from the institutional side. He's the head of business and wealth at Coinfinity, Austria's oldest Bitcoin broker. Next up, we have Ben Sessions, the man who needs little introduction, who's taught more people on YouTube moving their Bitcoin to self-custody. So there we have Ben Sessions with us. And then we have Piotr, who is the head of product offering Bitcoin custody solutions at Zapo Bank. And finally, our good friend Tony from the Bitcoin Way, which also I'm sure if you guys are interested in self-custody, you've come across the Bitcoin Way. So there's the panel. To kick things off, across the spectrum of custody models, which do you think is the most misunderstood today? And what are the consequences of that misunderstanding? Maybe we'll start off with you, Piotr, and we'll take it down the line.
Thank you very much for the introduction, and happy to be here. What I can describe to you is the process actually that I see quite a lot of our clients that we're taking care of. Coinfinity is the oldest Bitcoin broker. We offer the access to Bitcoin. We actually offer a compliance-conform infrastructure for people, high net worth individuals, and companies to buy or sell Bitcoin, rather than buy Bitcoin. But what I can actually figure in terms of the discussions and dialogues with our customer, I would say that like multi-signature solutions or having a setup that actually like guides you through the journey of how to store your Bitcoin in an institutional manner is rather, I would say, like not fully there where it's supposed to be. What I can experience is that a lot of our customers actually like they go into self-custody. They custody Bitcoin by themselves.
That's the way it should be.
As it should be. Has several reasons why, but they want to have like a lean process where they can also manage within their enterprises who has access to the Bitcoin and actually who can make the digital transactions. But when it comes to that, I think it's very important to outline also on this panel today what significance it is to store Bitcoin in a multi-signature level, and also had an interesting chat with Piotr prior to the opportunities, and I'm very happy to discuss this today.
Perfect. Thank you, Piotr. Off to Ben.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of misconceptions depending on where somebody's at in their Bitcoin journey, right? Like if somebody just coming in may not even understand the difference between sitting with a custodian versus self-custody. But I'd say amongst existing Bitcoiners that have kind of done the work and understand what self-custody is, I'd echo multi-sig is still kind of a mystery for a lot of people. They don't understand what has to be backed up or how to recover. You know, what are the pieces, what's needed, what's the config file, all these different parts, and what can you lose and still be okay. I would also say more recently with some of these kind of, well, I'm going to loosely use the term L2. I think there's a misconception around what trade-offs exist and what is actually still self-custody when you're using different types of Lightning wallets or a Lightning wallet that actually uses Liquid as a backend. I think there's a lot of confusion around that. And that's a hard, there's answers to those questions, but is the person ready to hear and understand those answers? It's murky waters there. So I'd say it's a mixed bag with everybody.
Fantastic answer. I couldn't agree more, Ben. Off to Piotr.
Yeah, so at Zapo Bank, we are focusing on high net worth individuals and the Bitcoiners who got into Bitcoin pretty early. We have customers who got their first Bitcoin in 2013, 14, 15. And since then, their stacks simply have grown. And, when those 100 Bitcoins, 200 Bitcoins, 300 Bitcoins back then was like just few $1,000s, right now, all of a sudden, they're sitting on millions of dollars of value. And they start feeling uncomfortable with that, and they reach out to us and ask for advice, right, what they should do. So I would say the misunderstanding is also around, you don't need to do either or. You don't need to do either 100% self-custody or the qualified custodian. We've seen this with our customers. You can just basically spread your Bitcoin across multiple regulated institutional grade custodians, and also have cold storage as your foundations, absolutely. So I would say it's not either or. You can have multiple custodians and multiple ways of custody their Bitcoin.
Fantastic answer, and I couldn't agree more. This world is not bipolar. You shouldn't be one way or another way. You can always mix and match. And Tony?
Yeah, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, the biggest misconception I see about Bitcoin is a lack of understanding of what it is. Bitcoin is not an investment or a stock or something that's going to mold its way into the existing financial system. Bitcoin at the fundamental level is created as money to replace everything we've ever known. And so if you're looking for Bitcoin to conveniently fit into that so that just life goes on with the things that you've been accustomed to, you're going to set yourself up for a bad movie. Bitcoin revolutionizes money. That is the biggest, fundamental purpose of its existence, and it requires us to relearn a bunch of steps. And these steps lead to the actual Bitcoin revolution, which is where every living soul now can 100% own their money. Bitcoin was not created to mold into the existing world. It was created to replace it entirely by sound money that no one can no longer control or manipulate. That is the biggest misconception I still see, as folks still thinking about this as an investment to sell back for fiat profits. If that's what you're doing, you're headed in the wrong direction. And that's where the education and the tools are still required to push this message and to teach the skills that are required for every individual, especially those that don't come from a tech background, to feel at home with all of this, because it's not difficult.
Fantastic answer, Tony. I like how we went from tools and we finished on ideology. But it is true, I 100% agree. Bitcoin, as I like to tell people, is a one-way route. Once you get into Bitcoin, there is no going back, selling for what, fiat, that you escaped. So I couldn't agree more. To take it a step further, so people want it all, right? They want security, convenience, and compliance in some case. But the trade-offs are unavoidable. What's the most common blind spot you see when users or companies try to have all three? Anyone's welcome to start it off.
Yeah, I can kick it off. So I think, the blind spot is when you think that security is only a technical security and you're not taking into account, operational aspect of the security and the humans and procedures and processes in place. And let me show you the example. In this year in February, we had a Bybit attack. You probably heard that, North Korean group. They siphoned off, $1.5 billion in crypto. And that was perfectly secure multi-sig solution. But the problem was, it was not the multi-sig that failed. It was humans that didn't double check the transaction, and they just blindly signed into the transaction that led to this hack. So I would say it's a blind spot when you're thinking in terms of security like a one vector, where you have just, it's multi-sig, it's MPC, it's cold storage. You need to think about which people will be accessing those systems, what are the procedures and processes in place, because sometimes we ourselves can be our biggest problem. And also, humans are always the weakest security link in the chain of security.
Now, with that issue, if I'm not mistaken, they were using ledgers for the multisig, right? And if I'm not mistaken, the way that gets presented when you're signing is just a hash. It's just like a jumble of shit. Like you can't tell what you're doing.
It's last digits.
Yeah, so it's kind of like, here's a bunch, like a mess of letters and numbers. Do you agree? And you're like, I guess so. And so you couldn't even, I mean, I know there's tools that exist so that you could get that human readable, but like, what a mess to be dealing with that amount of money transactionally and be looking at that and being like, sure, I guess I agree to whatever that means. Like, just a horrible experience in my opinion. But anyways.
And just to add to that, they trusted instead of verified, as we know.
Yes, yeah.
You verify, don't trust, and they just blindly pressed it and poof.
Well, your hardware is supposed to be your kind of like beacon of truth, right? Like you're not supposed to trust the phone or the computer that you're broadcasting the transaction. You're supposed to go to the device for your final layer of defense, like this is the device, it's telling me what's actually happening.
And check it twice, not just quickly run through it.
But that, in that instance, with the way that multisig works on Ledger, it's just like you're, again, it's blind trust, kind of.
Well, and if I can like just add a few things, what I do see is like family-owned businesses, they want to have lean structures and they want to make custody as simple as possible, right? And they do not want to have additional complexity and whatsoever. I mean, the advantage of family-owned businesses is that you have like a very flat hierarchy, right? Like from the decision taking place to accept Bitcoins on Bitcoin on the balance sheet, you know, like to select the right infrastructure to buy Bitcoin and also to save your Bitcoin. The whole process is very lean, and I think this is a key strength of SMEs, definitely. And what I see like a blind spot is that maybe in institutions like in like a huge enterprise infrastructure, I think like the compliance approach could make things very complicated, because where I see the blind spot is like to figure compliance all the way out, but maybe lose traction or maybe lose the aspect of who actually interferes or which party actually you are working with when it comes to multi-signature solutions and so on. So I think at the current stage, owning or have the sovereignty of your Bitcoin is a huge strength of SMEs. And therefore, I think the blind spot may be like the over-complexity and also the compliance framework in bigger institutions that maybe opens disadvantages in other directions.
Tony, let's hear your take.
Yeah, of course, man. All of these are very valid points, but I think they cast a light on the fundamental problem, is that a lot of people still prioritize convenience over doing the work. Okay, all of these symptoms that we've just listened to are things that are like coming out of trust, trusting others to do the work. That philosophy, that mindset has to change. Bitcoin wasn't created for this. Like I said earlier, Bitcoin will not mold into the current system. You can use the current system as a transition, you know, to get to the final destination, which is full self-custody, where every single one of you is the head of security now. You are the bank. You are in full control of your funds. Any mistake that happens is on you. Yes, it sucks if it happens, but that's how it's supposed to be. And that requires a little bit of effort and discipline to learn some new steps that the world has never seen before. This is not rocket science. It's just new. And once you've mastered these steps with enough muscle memory, you will see you'll be doing this as seamlessly as riding a bicycle. And the more you do it, it will become as normalized as the internet, okay? So we need to go through this transition, but you cannot prioritize convenience over doing the work. The concept of always relying on others because they know better than you do, that must be terminated. Otherwise, you bring in counterparty risk continuously into your lives, and that's not what Bitcoin was made for.
Piotr was itching to, so go ahead, Piotr.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on this. So, you know, our founder is Wences Casares. Not sure if you probably know, it's an original Bitcoin OG, you know, person who was, you know, orange pilling Silicon Valley back in 2013, 2014. You can see the YouTube videos when he is basically talking about how money is sound, etc., and how Bitcoin solves it, Bitcoin fixes this. And we were always looking like Bitcoin will do to money what internet did to information, democratizing the access, and you have access to the sound money. But to get us to this, you know, right now Bitcoin is owned by 200 million people or 250 million people all around the world. But how do we get to the billion people? Because that's what matters. How Bitcoin is everywhere and is a foundation of a new financial system. We want to get there, but we won't get there if we force everyone to become a security expert. Because look, my mom, she barely can upgrade her Chrome browser, you know, and you know, if I try to make her a security expert, in that sense, we will not get there. And if you look at the early internet in the 90s, like the internet before the browser, it was very unusable, right? You still could surf, you could use the console and have a telnet and running the commands, but it was only used by, you know, niche academics, etc. And the moment browser came, then all of a sudden this changed the game, because all of a sudden nobody needs to think about like what's happening on SSL level, on HTTPS, you know, TCP/IP. All of this is abstracted away so that my mom can log into her banking account without thinking about the security, right? And I think the moment where we need in Bitcoin to have this browser moment, maybe it's you know, Apple or Google putting, you know, MPC wallets as a part of the OS, right? If it was like natively supported in an iPhone or Android, maybe that's a browser moment. But we are looking at what the browser moment will be, because that would get us from 250 million right now of Bitcoin owners to billions of people benefiting from sound money.
I was just going to say, I understand the perspective. My main worry is that the way we reach a billion people is saying just buy the ETF. I don't want that to be our future. So that will be part of what materializes, because people just choose the path of least resistance by default. But I think it's very important that you get the hardliners coming out saying, no, take control, learn the tools, because what that does overall is it shifts the Overton window, and it adds a bit of a stigma to, oh, you just said, yeah, I don't want any personal responsibility, do it for me. And then, you know, what have we seen historically? We've seen a cascading effect of larger and larger rug pulls every single cycle. And I'm not saying that every single example of a custodian will do that, but inevitably it's going to happen again and again at larger scale. People assume that, they've assumed every cycle. 2013, or 2014, Mt. Gox blows up. Next cycle, we're past that. Quadriga happens. Next cycle, we're past that. FTX happens. Next cycle, well, now the institutions are here. What do you think is going to happen next? The institutions are just people. They're going to make mistakes too. I'm not saying which ones for sure, but at some point in the future, I am certain there is going to be another blow up and people are going to get rug pulled. At some point, the rug pull is so large that you can't print enough money to buy back enough Bitcoin to make people whole. So I think pushing for more personal responsibility is the way to go, even if it delays some people.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying, and I echo a lot of the messages you just put out. There is a role for custodians right now, because, I mean, this is not a light switch, unfortunately, as much as I'd love it to be. But custodians also have a role and responsibility. Not all custodians are the same. I mean, they all, you know, we have to rely on the trust factor when it comes to using custodians. But if we're all aligned in the same direction, custodians should be enforcing the ethos of Bitcoin, which leads people to eventually being fully in self-custody. What we don't want to do is have custodians enforce the bad habits of, we'll take care of it for you, don't worry about it.
Trust me, bro.
Trust me, bro. That is the mistake that we've all lived through up until this day. People repeat that silliness over and over again, and more people get destroyed because of it. So yes, there is a role for custodians, but in my opinion, it's a pit stop, not a final destination. And a good custodian will establish that trust with the end user in order to eventually lead them to becoming their own bank. That's how they win, that's how Bitcoin wins, that's how the world evolves into that life that everybody keeps talking about, that's formed on the foundations of incorruptible money.
That's a good point. It's only a great sum up as well. And a few add-ons to that is, for example, Coinfinity. If you take a look at what we are doing and how our business is structured, we don't actually we are not taking care of any Bitcoin or fiat money from our clients. If clients come to us, they have to make sure that they are securing the Bitcoin in the way that they feel, that they feel comfortable with. That actually brings a certain responsibility upfront, right? So they have to be at least, they have to know about how to secure Bitcoin and what ways do I have to go when they come to us. So I think this is actually the right way to go to educate, right? And to offer the infrastructure to people to educate themselves. Various talks with wealth managers, for example, when I talk to them and how they deal with clients from them, they're actually saying, they just want to have the performance of Bitcoin in their portfolio. They don't care, right? They just buy the IBIT and it's fine. And they take a look at the portfolio and, and the value of the portfolio is going up, it's going down. That's everything they care of. It's like just like they have the performance of Bitcoin. But what they're missing out is a fundamental advantage that Bitcoin gives to everybody is like the autonomy, right? You have to take care of the Bitcoin by yourself. And how many clients do we have and do I work with is where their aspirations is if something goes wrong, if any political circumstances in my home country is going in a different direction, I just take my capital in terms of Bitcoin and just go, step into the next plane and leave my country. And this ability for me is like a huge advantage that Bitcoin gives to everybody. It's just a question who wants to embrace it or who wants to neglect it. And I simply see like the complexity for so many people because that's maybe the point that you pointed out, Piotr, is how do we get there for, let's say, like to bring in billions of people, right? Because at the moment, I think it gives maybe some people a headache to figure out multi-signature, single sig with passphrase, whatsoever. I think we have to make it. Simple, and I think the infrastructure must be simple and easygoing, at least for the first steps in the Bitcoin space. That's my opinion.
Just to add on, I guess, in general, when it comes to custodians, I think the world as it exists right now, when somebody has responsibility for a lot of other people's money, like think of the upper echelon, like the government and stuff, there's very little transparency there with other people's money. Like not everybody can go and audit that. Sure, like a large auditing firm can go in there, but like on an individual level, you can't go and audit. Whereas you as an individual are forced to basically give up every bit of personal information on every turn. Like I think in the US, it's your $600 Venmo has to be reported to the IRS. It's like the complete inverse of what it should be. And we have a unique opportunity with Bitcoin to set things right, where your daily transactions, nobody needs to know the details of those, and you can achieve a level of privacy using the correct tools for those day-to-day things. Meanwhile, because Bitcoin's base layer is transparent, those with the most responsibility that are stewards of other people's money should be held to the utmost levels of transparency. We should demand that of them and be seeing exactly how things are working in the background to not only battle test it, but to have a canary in the coal mine if stuff starts to go sideways, if funds start to flow, at least give people warning. So I think we're at a unique point in time where we're still trying to apply the status quo to Bitcoin, but we're about to flip that entirely.
Yeah, I know, I completely agree. I'll just add to that, that there's one thing, the elephant in the room that a lot of people don't like to talk about is essentially the root of the problem. You can have the best custodian in the world. Their intentions, the people, triple star, no issues there. The problem with a custodian is that they have to play by rules that they do not control. Bitcoin and the existing system cannot coexist. One was created to steal, the other was created to enrich. It's like oil and water, they cannot mix. And so, if something goes sideways, no matter how good the intentions of a custodian is, if the orders from above come to execute something, they're not going to put you first. They can't. And that's how a lot of people get drugged. You need to understand that the root of the problem is the fiat system. It's not the custodian. Custodians are what we interact with. But behind the scenes, that is the problem that Bitcoin was created to resolve. The elimination, the separation of the power of money from every living human soul. Without this, nothing changes. So yes, we need to learn the skills. No one is dumb enough to learn self-custody. It's not rocket science. It's just new. And the minute you master the skills, you'll be doing this like riding a bicycle. I can tell you from experience, that is a fact. You don't have to come from a tech background, so that is not an argument that is valid in my book. You just need to have an open mind and a willingness to learn, and anyone can learn the skills inside and out. But you have to accept either staying in a broken system or choosing to opt out into one where you and you alone have full control over your life and your wealth. And it's not governed or controlled by anyone else. You do not need to ask permission anymore. That is Bitcoin. So if you accept this, then you can go in one direction. If you don't accept this, then nothing is likely to change, and you are likely going to end up repeating the same mistakes over and over again. There are good custodians. They are necessary throughout this transition. But at the end of the day, like I said, these are pit stops, not final destinations. You are the final destination.
There's, and this is twofold. Sorry, I'm...
Oh, go ahead.
This is twofold, because everybody at one point, do you remember how crappy online banking was the first time? And it was hard. It's still, I mean, you still, a lot of online banking, you're like, where is this sub menu? And you're trying to find, like, it wasn't a positive experience, but everybody learned how to do it. Everybody's got to, and it got easier. The apps got easier to use. It's simpler to send and receive. Very much the same thing in Bitcoin. You're right, it's new. So you learn initially, it's gonna feel foreign. And then eventually, again, it is like riding a bike, plus the tools are getting easier. Thank God we have people doing UI and UX that is better now than in the years prior, but it's gonna take some time. And again, I like the transition piece too, because I mean, I would say the end goal of all of these services that have popped up to allow people to obtain Bitcoin through fiat is, the end goal is to be obsolete. My end goal is, like, teaching people how to use Bitcoin is to be obsolete, because when people no longer need me to tell them how to use Bitcoin, it's either because Bitcoin has failed or because everyone is already using Bitcoin. So hopefully the latter.
100% agree.
It's a good point, you know, just to kind of balance it out. Everybody should have a choice. If you want to custody it through, you know, companies such as Zapo and others, you should have that choice. If you want to withdraw it and hold it in self-custody, always have that choice. And at the end of the day, some people prefer simple setups. Some people don't feel comfortable holding their keys. It's entirely your own choice. Don't think it's the right or wrong way. But I guess from everything that's been discussed, the end goal is to become unruggable. So you make the decision for yourself. I think a nice segue from here, guys, is we're realizing there is no one size fits all for everyone, right? Depending who the demographic, who the use case is. So with Bitcoin custody not having a one size fits all, how do you guys recommend different different recommendations between retail users, high net worth individuals, businesses managing large holdings, or even potentially client funds. Yes, we can start with you, Piotr.
I think in retail, for the average person who actually enters into the market, I think it's important to learn to study how to keep up the sovereignty of the Bitcoin, and that could be in various ways how to store Bitcoin. It could be maybe a hot wallet, it could be a cold wallet, whatsoever. But I think it's important to make your first steps. I think it's important to educate yourself. I think the solution or the selection of which wallet or what storage is not the important thing at the moment or when you step into the space immediately. I think it's just to get experience, to learn first, and to make things going. Because if you question, if you want to understand things, until every single piece of it, you will not take the first step anyway, and this will, on the other side, doesn't get you anywhere. And so that's the first recommendation to the retailer. When it comes to businesses, again, I can speak for SMEs. They would like to have the control over the Bitcoin by themselves. And as I said, that could be various ways. I have clients who secure Bitcoin via multi-sig. I have clients who are securing Bitcoin via single-sig, and adding a passphrase, but they keep the process lean, as I said, and steady. And for institutions, I think we witness in the last few years even a huge variety of custodians that actually offer services to companies to guide them through complexity. Bottom line is keep it clean, keep it simple, but be able to access to your stack whenever you want, and don't lose sovereignty. That's actually my standpoint of view, and that's also what I can tell you from our clients.
Nice.
Yeah, so I mean, this question has, I would say, no one answer. It's very dependent on the individual, their circumstances, where they are in their learning journey, how much of a technical Luddite they currently are, and also just jurisdictionally, where are you? Because, speaking to everybody that's here right now, you're enjoying a very different standard of living versus, I just came from the Oslo Freedom Forum, and we have human rights activists from sub-Saharan Africa and other places where they're dealing with people that perhaps their first transaction is going to be 1,000 sats or something very, very minuscule. And also they don't have savings. So it's transactional, and it's coming from a perspective of privacy and censorship resistance. So what tools exist for that person versus somebody who's I want to protect my life savings in a Western nation from, inflation and confiscation and other things like that. So I think I'm not going to give a specific answer here, but I'm going to say in general, the most important thing for me is that I get a person as far down the self-sovereignty path as I can. And so if that first step is something that's not perfect, I'm okay with that if it means that they keep taking steps. It's I'm not going to make fun of a 5-year-old trying to sound out letters and words in the alphabet because they've not yet read human action, right? It's you'll get there, possibly, but you want to give them the tools to start making those steps. If the first thing you show the person makes them go, oh my God, that's way too complicated, and they turn around, they walk out the door, you have failed. So you need to make sure that you send a person down the path of education, but you always leave more breadcrumbs for curiosity to get them to the next thing and the next thing. The most important is just, what is step one, what is step two, and just focus on what's right in front of you and then move on.
That was an amazing take. Before I give it to Piotr, it's, as the saying goes, you can bring the horse to the water, but you can't make it drink, right? So there's only so much we can do. Piotr, please.
Yeah, so that obviously depends on the size of your stack, right? That's different. Securing $100 worth of Bitcoin is different than securing 100 million, right?
And 1,000 sats, as Ben.
Or sats, yeah. So from the our point of view, we are serving corporates, we are serving high net worth individuals, family offices, and those people, because they have lots of corn already, then they need to secure it on multiple levels. And it's not one answer or one security level that they need multiple levers. So for example, right now, not sure if anyone knows here, it's the MPC technology, multi-party computation, is becoming more and more popular in institutional custody. And for example, you talk about the Bitcoin ETF. So they have like 500,000 Bitcoins, and Coinbase is custodying these with no hacks, and they are keeping this under custody using this cutting-edge technology, which is MPC. Now, for those who don't know, the MPC is like, historically we have had, hot wallets and cold storage. Now, the promise of MPC and multi-party computation, it's quite brilliant algorithm cryptographically that allows you to get rid of the private key in the first place. So instead of having the private keys like in single sig and then having multiple private keys like multi-sig, MPC is sort of superseding this because there is no private key to begin with, and it doesn't appear anywhere at any point in time. So the way it works, you can imagine like a swarm of signers distributed all across the world, and they are basically signing Bitcoin transactions with no single point of failure. And that was our recommendation. So when we are talking to institutions, we are talking high net worth individuals, we are always eliminating any single point of failure from their setup. So there is no way that Bitcoin can be lost. And just to give the perspective, in our specific implementation of MPC, we are still reusing that, nuclear-resistant bunkers in Switzerland that we've been known for as Zapo Bank. And it's pretty funny. I've been there once. It's like a room after room after room. When you go, there is like the shards on like Faraday cages, and you have armed guards everywhere, and it's like biometric.
For James Bond style, right?
It's James Bond style, really. So we are flying from time to time our customers to see those bunkers, and they are pretty impressed. It's really James Bond style. And so, for people, institutions, and high net worth individuals that sort of want this military-grade security, we show them this, we give them this.
Yeah, I mean, all these answers are good answers, and I agree with a lot of them. Fundamentally, for me, I mean, the tools are not the issue. It's really understanding why you're here in the first place and what's the problem that you want to fix. Once that's been confirmed, then finding the tools to meet everyone at their journey, that's the easy part. And Bitcoin is technology. It's going to continuously evolve, get simpler, get easier, get more secure over time. Cybersecurity is also a process. It's not, we set everything up perfectly now and then we forget about it for the next 20 years. It's not the way it works. Baby steps, incremental changes are always going to be necessary because now we are the heads of security. We are responsible for the well-being of our wealth. And so if we fall behind, we suffer the consequences of those bad decisions. But yes, I mean, at different levels, especially on very high net worth, multi-institutional grade money, you need custodians with the infrastructure and the resources in order to give them that peace of mind. But institutions are very different from retail, and it's a different security model for each and every one of them. So like Ben said, it's not one fits all. There are the tools to fit what you need. You just need to take the steps in that direction, but primarily understand why you are here. If you are here to sell for fiat later on, you don't belong here. This is not the place for it, because you will end up making irrational, emotional decisions that will end up harming you. So the tools, again, it's not the issue. It's understanding the why.
Just to add to what the gentleman said, Bitcoin is not just having the best, most secure cryptographic hardware solution, it's also about the mindset. As the guy said, do a lot of education. Ask yourself, why am I here? Why am I doing this? Where do I want to go? And I think that is even at 80% of your self-custody, and the 20% is the technical. We have less than a minute to go. To close it up, one sentence each, gentlemen. What is your one number advice for self-custody or corporate custody for people that want to take seriously holding their Bitcoin in 2025? One sentence.
Make it more very quick and simple. There is actually no approach that fits everybody. But secure your Bitcoin in anticipation of what's going to come in the next few years, not in the status quo today, and secure your Bitcoin in anticipation of what is in front of us in the near future.
Perfect. Ben?
The medium is the learning mechanism. You must do to learn, so don't get analysis paralysis.
Perfect. Piotr?
I would say make sure that if something happens to you, your loved ones, your family, whoever is most important to you will be able to access the funds when something happens to you. Fingers crossed nothing happens to you.
Super important point. Thank you, Piotr. And Tony?
If you value your life and freedom, you must learn these skills. There is no other play.
Amen. Guys, round of applause to these fantastic panelists. Feel free to approach them regarding corporate custody, self-custody. I'm sure Tony, Ben, and myself, Gigi, would be more than happy to have a chat and help you guys out. Enjoy your day, and thank you.
Secure your BTC Prague 2026 ticket at the lowest possible price now.